The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you. Once again, My Music takes the air, and here on the stage of the Commonwealth Institute in London are four contestants. Ian Wallace with Denis Norden, and, in the absence through indisposition of Frank Muir, John Amis has as his partner Alfred Marks. As usual, we have an opening round of musical identification, but the music is rather unusual this time, one way or another. Ian Wallace, for instance, in its arrangement. Ian, what was that before the jazzmen got to it?
Touch of Bach, I would say.
Yes.
But which touch? That's another matter.
Yes.
You're wanting to know exactly which bit?
I am really, yes. Or at least what kind of a Bach piece. Does John know? I think
yes.
We'll ask John. What is it, John?
It's an advertising jingle. Wash it off.
Or?
Wach it auf.
Wach it auf, yes.
Wake up.
Yes. Choral prelude on what John just said. And I can't allow Mark there, of course, Ian, but you'll pick him up later on. Dennis, one of my pet hates, I don't know about you, is British people who adopt American slang to which they're not entitled. People who say, look, man, that's not my scene, or I don't dig that, or no way, which is my unfavourite at the moment.
Well,
so you
somebody, on your pet hate, on that thing, somebody I know was in America and was at a party, and there was a young man, and he said to this young man, what do you do? And this young man said, well, like, man, my bag is, I'm into teaching English.
Oh, that beats the lot. Well, sharing my view, as I think you do, you can imagine how much I enjoy this song. And I'm going to ask you, who's the singer?
I dig, I'm in step. When it was hip to be hep, I was hep. I don't blow, but I'm a fan. Look at me swing, ring-a-ding-ding. I even call my girlfriend man, I'm so hip. Every Saturday night, with my suit buttoned tight and my suede's on, I'm getting my kicks, watching arty French flicks with my shades on. I'm too much, I'm a gas. I am anything but middle class. When I hang around the band, popping my thumbs, digging the drums. Squares don't seem to understand why I flip. They're not hip, like I'm hip.
Lovely lady. Her own piano playing, her own song, too.
Is it?
Was she?
Yeah? Well, it's the same lady who did not quite as good a job of lyric writing on Georgie Fame, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Blossom Dearie.
In the same vein as what you were talking about, do you know the story about Sir Thomas Beecham being woken up in America? Telephone rang, and he said, who is that? He said, oh, Sir Thomas, this is the secretary of the English-speaking union. He said, I don't believe it.
Dennis has a mark for Blossom Dearie. John, it's over to your turn. Music for you by a composer whose work has never yet been heard in this programme, as it happens. Can you identify him simply from the oral evidence? Very difficult, and I would be prepared to help a little if you want.
Well, I don't know the piece, but I would be prepared to guess it's American.
No, it's not. It's one of 6 well-known composers.
One of six.
One of six
well-known.
composers of whom some are well known.
Ah, alors. Les
six, yes.
Really?
6. Which one, though?
I should think it is Mr. Georges Ulrich.
You'd be right for a mark. Georges Ulrich, yes. The youngest. I did help, but only because it was so extremely difficult. It was I'm told, his only purely symphonic work, called Overtures. He's the youngest of the 6, Les Six, Ulrich. And Alfred Marks, to you. Here's something unusual. Whose name is on the record?
Everybody sing! I tell you, my dear friends, oh, how wonderful it is! No matter wherever you are, we can all be happy and singing! No matter if you're out there parked in that car along the highway, or whether you're at home sitting by the radio, or whether you're having one of the meals, or whether you're by the TV set, let everyone sing about those melting ice caps, how they're coming down into the sea.
Sounds like a rather short Cyrano de Bergerac. But it can't be that.
No.
Can't be that.
Not wrong nationality.
Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim, John's got it.
Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim.
It was the tune on the B-side of Hello, Hello, if you remember.
Yes, I never even heard the A-side.
Well, some people have all the luck, the name came from your side, so you get the mark. And on to round 2, some miscellaneous questions. They're all to do with music, of course. Ian, what do you suppose is a cloiture?
Cloiture.
Cloiture.
It's something in music. Well, it must be.
Yes,
I mean, we wouldn't be asking. That's a stupid thing to say.
I mean, if it's anything to do with flowers, but this would be on Gardener's Question time.
Tour.
Yes.
Overture.
Now you're on the right track. You may get to it.
Oh. An overture's at the beginning.
Yes.
But a cloiture is at the end.
No! A cloiture is, in fact, an 18th century term for the closing piece of the concert, and Ian has a mark. Dennis, what part did a banjo play in the film of The Man Who Came to Dinner?
Not a banjo, as a character.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yes.
Well, I see, there's this fellow Sheridan Whiteside.
Yes.
And one of his friends is called Banjo, who was played by Jimmy Durante.
Yes, and Sheridan Whiteside played by
Monty Woolley.
Yes, that's right. Jimmy Durante arrived like a breath of fresh air just as the film was getting a bit turgid, if you remember. Rushes in, sits down at the piano and sings. Do you remember the song?
Have you ever had the feeling that you wanted to stay and the feeling that you wanted to stay?
That's the one, yes. Banjo was the part played by Jimmy Durante. A mark to you. John Amos, where might you find the Reverie de Georges Brown?
Georges Brown.
Oh, Georges Brown.
I should think it's in one of those operas about romantic Scotland.
Yes, well, you were right. Whenever the setting is Scottish, whose novels have they been looking at in opera?
Usually that fellow Scott.
Yes, that's right. Yes, appropriate. Yes. It's in Act 3 of an opera called La Dame Blanche.
Oh, yes, Boileau.
Yes, or words to that effect. Boileau. Yes, an opera written, first produced in 1825, in which a Monsieur Georges Brown is a character. The story was derived from 2, actually, of Sir Walter Scott's novels. 1 mark. Alfred, you're a man who travels around London a lot. Where would you find the nearest Eustation tube?
The nearest?
Yes.
The nearest?
Eustation
tube.
Yes.
In a luggo.
Anybody's, yes.
Anybody's luggo.
Eustachian tube is in your head. It communicates between the pharynx and the ear and is important in the art of singing.
Well, that's a long way of putting it. My way is much more
yes, it is actually much more fun.
It's an ear roll, which is everything.
My answers always are longer and duller than because they're the truth.
I didn't say dull, I said longer.
Right. He wants to come back. 1 mark to you. And time for some opera singing.
See
Ian, when I tell you that that singing lesson concerns Marie, the Marquise de Berkenfeld et Sulpice, and that it was first performed in 1840 at the Opéra Comique, can you tell me the name of the opera?
Yes.
Good, you got a mark. And we move on to Denis Norden. Well, let's have the name of the opera.
Well, if you insist, it's The Daughter of the Regiment.
That's right, by Donizetti. Yes,
She doesn't really sound as if she needed that singing lesson.
No, she doesn't, not with that top F, whatever it was. No. Dennis, operatic plots really can be a bit far-fetched. In this particular opera, Marie is a foundling brought up by the soldiers of the 21st Regiment of Grenadiers. When they catch a mountain lad lurking around the camp, they seize him as a spy. But little Marie says, "Spare him, for he it was who saved me from falling over a nearby precipice." In fact, she wants to marry him. Dennis, you're a writer. What happens next?
You mean there's more?
And it's coming from you, yes.
Well, his name, actually, is Precipice Riccardo in Italian, which is actually Italian for Cliff Richard. And so, anyway, he marries her, and they don't go near any precipices, and they take the circular route to get to their wedding, and they do the aria, "She'll be coming round."
Right, you're right, and you get a mark
Something
for it.
like
Yes,
that,
that's right. Yes. My answer is that the mountain lad enlists at that point, and Marie is taken away to learn polite manners.
To learn what?
Polite manners. Because she's been drug up by all these soldiers.
Oh, I
in the
see.
camp. That's the reason. John, this man Donizetti, who composed the opera, he also wrote Emilia di Liverpool and Elisabetta al Castello di Kenilworth, which always rather pleases me. But among his major operas were two written in succeeding years that have been described as Potion and Poison. What were their names, do you think? Donizetti's Potion and Poison, two operas.
Lucrezia Borgia.
Lucrezia Borgia, yes, in 1833. That's right. Now, the year before, you won't get the other one, that was Poison. Potion was, Ian?
Elixir of Love.
Yes,
Elixir
d'amore. Yes, that's right.
Che stupido io.
Stupido, but half a Marco, so that's all right. No. Incidentally, Donizetti's Don Sebastiano was described as a funeral in 5 acts by somebody who didn't care for it. Alfred, that excerpt from the singing lesson we heard just now ends in rather a strange way, and having heard it, I'd like you to tell us, please, what happened. And then, at the very end... What happened, Alfred?
We're still with the daughter of the regiment, of course. Yes,
With the bayonet.
Yes, he's a soldier. He's a sentry actually, and he's still got his bayonet fixed on his rifle. And the opera of the daughter of the regiment was based on She Stoops to Conquer. And when in fact she stooped, he in great earnestness bent down to help her, and lo and behold, pointing the wrong way, the bayonet, unfortunately, the aria is affectionately known as La Goose.
I would do very nicely, actually. The dull, correct answer, of course, being that
She ran out of breath.
Well, no. The Marquise, that trying to teach Marie good manners, finds herself caught up in a vulgar army song and is disgusted with herself afterwards. The singers, to save people writing to ask, and that on those various recordings, were Joan Sutherland, Monica Sinclair, and Spiro Malas. And just having a glance at the score at the halfway mark, leading by half a mark, are John Amis and Alfred Marks.
Well.
All you have to do in this round is supply the name. Ian, he was born in 1848, knighted in 1903. He composed Song of Farewell and A Blessed Pair of Sirens. He died in 1918. Who was he?
Sir Hubert Parry. He was a tremendous athlete who did everything that was dangerous, both on land and sea. I remember reading about him somewhere once where it said that in the course of his athletic pursuits on both land and water, he sustained almost every conceivable injury short of those which were immediately fatal.
Yes. A lovely man, and then rushed home and wrote Jerusalem.
Yes.
As he did. Endeared himself to women's institutes throughout the country. Denis, born 1917, he got his nickname because of his eccentric behaviour and brilliant trumpet playing. He was co-founder with Monk and Parker of Bebop. Who was he?
Well, the only name I can think of, it's Dizzy Gillespie.
Yes, it is, for a mark. And we move on to John Amis. John, born 1583, organist at Chapel Royal and at Westminster Abbey, he composed, among other things, fantasies on the street cries of London. Who would that be? And Alfred is writing down something for you.
Yes.
Oh, you've got it anyway.
Orlando Gibbons.
Yes, 1 mark. Alfred, born 1875, son of a Sierra Leone doctor and an English girl, one of his compositions filled the Royal Albert Hall annually for many years. Who was he?
I don't know, but I know a very good story about Beethoven. And if I tell it to you, can I get the mark?
You can have half a mark.
All right, then. Beethoven's butler approached the maestro one day and said, Herr Beethoven, I'm having to leave your service. And Beethoven said, why? What do you mean? Erhard's still playing the piano. And he said, I can't stand all this piano playing, night and day, piano, all these late parties every night. And Beethoven said, you can't leave me. You have been with me all these years. It's impossible. You can't leave me. And the butler said, I'm sorry, Herr Beethoven, I must go. I'm driving me mad. And Beethoven said, but you can't go. You are my inspiration. And the butler said, I am your inspiration. Don't make me laugh. Ha, 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 And the butler's name was Coleridge Taylor.
Thanks to John's assistance. Right. Yes, that's right. Coleridge Taylor, the composer of Hiawatha, which is the work I was referring to. Oh, well, between you get the full mark then, don't you? There. Back in the good old days of the cinema, when a visit to your friendly neighbourhood cinema was a pleasure rather than the rather grim business it is now, they used to have all sorts of short films, newsreels, cartoons, travelogues, and what we used to call interest films. Some of these short films had memorable themes, which I'm now going to revive, insofar as I can remember them, on the piano. Ian, what would you expect to hear after this? No. No, you got the wrong company. Yeah. Wrong company.
Oh, it was a newsreel anyway.
Yes, a newsreel. Dennis, can you help him with
It's Paramount.
Paramount, yes, yeah. Paramount on Parade.
What was I doing then?
Pathé.
Pathé.
Oh,
Pathé.
Yeah. Do I get a mark for my bird imitation?
Well, your side got it. It was, in fact, the theme music of Paramount News, yes. Dennis, what followed this in the good old days of cinema? Who popped up then?
Yes, that was a cartoon.
Yes.
And I can see the kind of whirl kind of shape on the screen. I can't remember the cartoon character.
Probably grated carrot, actually.
Carrot?
Yes.
Bugs Bunny?
Yes, it was Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, I can't, yeah.
What, half a mark, does anybody think?
Yeah, I think
yes,
so.
All right, half a mark for the cartoon, yes. John Amis, what did this herald? Tough on the right arm muscles, that one is.
British movie tone?
No.
Gaumont British?
No. Gaumont British, yes. Louis Levy, of course.
Louis Levy.
That theme music from the movies, yes. You got it, I think, soon enough to got it.
May I tell my Louis Levy story?
Oh, yes. Conductor of the orchestra.
He was a great conductor, but not the world's most academic man. And at one point he turned to the orchestra that he was conducting for the film movie and said, "Come on, boys, let's have a bit more noise." And the leader said, "But Mr. Levy, it says on this particular bit of music, Morendo." He said, "Well, let's have more of it, boys, but don't let it die away." He was a great man, nevertheless.
Yes, great man, nevertheless. I didn't prepared for that at all. This is, I think, a tricky one, but we'll see. Alfred, when was this tune heard?
Was it when there used to be a little trailer thing, say in the old days, saying refreshments will now be served, and onto the screen came this picture of this beautiful girl, and the spotlight switched to an old hag live in the cinema. Was that it?
No, I'm afraid it's not.
No. It's a good story, isn't it?
It's a good story, yes. Yeah. It was in many, many, many films. Does anybody know? Do any of you on the panel know?
Was it Charlie Chase?
No, but you're in the right sort of field. No, anybody in the audience know where they've heard that tune? Pardon? No. Immediately after, Laurel and Hardy went into...
Nobody in the audience knew. You asked me that question. Do you remember the March of Time? Who remembers the March of Time? I know that one. Can I get a mark for that?
Well, go on, sing it.
He's forgotten. The March of Time. As we survey China's millions today, we see a new China molded by the hands of General Chiang Kai-shek, and then you see thousands of bayonets walking around.
Yes. A mark to all our guests. Fair enough. Ivan Novello wrote a show called Gay's the Word. Gracie Fields used to sing Beggar or King, You've Got to Sing a Gay Song. It's perhaps unfortunate that the word gay has now taken on a rather different association from what it meant in earlier days. But I'm going to ask our contestants all the same to sing 4 gay songs. They'll do anything for a mark, actually. Denis, you first, a bachelor gay. I'll play you an introduction.
At 17, I missed it. Right, no, you don't really want to hear me.
Well,
say,
just
with eyes of something blue. At 74, he wrote it rather badly with eyes of a different...
A mark to you. John, there was one show that they said made rich gay and gay rich. Rich, the promoter, gay, the poet responsible. Can you give us a song from that show for your mark? Any gay song?
If the heart of a man is depressed with cares, the mist will dispel when a woman appears. Like the notes of a fiddle, she sweetly, sweetly raises our spirits and charms our ears.
Yes, very nice. That was lovely. What was it from?
The Beggar's Opera.
Yes, thank you very much. Good. Mark to you. Alfred, can you sing us a highly risible song on the subject of a wingless insect of the order Siphonaptera?
Siphonaptera. Siphonaptera. Sounds like something out of you might find in a glass of scotch.
Yes, well, if you found this, you'd be in trouble, actually.
Would a knowledge of entomology help me in this?
Yes.
Yes. I think it's La Puce.
Yes.
By Mussorgsky, the flea.
Can you give us a stanza, please?
Yeah. What bit do you want? The laughing bit or the other bit?
The best bit.
The best bit. Once long ago a king kept such a fine fat flea. A flea. A flea. I'm going to tell my own orchestra. A flea. Hold it, it's gone. Flea.
Yes, lovely. Ian, that's a song that ends with maniac laughter, but you get your gaiety from a road. And your key for it, I think, would be about A flat. Here we are.
Any old coat and any old hat and any old stick will do, so long as the open road's in front and the sky above is blue. Any old friend can come along with me, and any true heart I say, I will sing my rhyme till I've had my time on the rollicking gay highway. I will sing my rhyme till I've had my time on the rollicking gay highway.
I'm afraid it's time for us to travel the road again. A victory this week by 1 mark for John Amis and Alfred Marks. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amis, Alfred Marks, Denis Norden and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the programme was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the team.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, and up goes the curtain on another edition of My Music. Exercise in musical knowledge, really, between Ian Wallace and Denis Norden on the one hand, and John Amis and Frank Muir on the other. And we begin with some musical identification. Ian, whenever I go to see a classical ballet, I always see the moment, enjoy the moment, when the main male ballet dancer stalks around the stage with his arm up, and draped over his hand is the leading female ballet dancer, as if she'd just done her back in. You know that moment. She walks around rather proudly. And this is the music you always seem to hear at that moment. Lovely music. Ian, which ballet is it from and who composed it?
Well, before making a stab at that, I would say that the chances are that more male ballet dancers have done their back in carrying that girl around than in any other way. Tchaikovsky.
Yes.
This is from the Nutcracker, is it not?
Yes, it is. It's the pas de deux from the Nutcracker Suite. Yes. 2 marks to you. Denis, for you, not ballet, but film. Question, which?
Well, was it Nielsen said that As Time Goes By it was the greatest popular song ever composed? I think that was the best comedy film ever made.
You really?
Some Like It Hot.
Yes.
I do. Yeah.
And the singer was
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe, 2 marks to you. Yes. John Amis, for you, neither ballet nor film, but opera. What ends like this? certainly the end, isn't it? The end of what?
I think it's the end of a duet from the Pearlfishers.
Yes.
Bizet.
Which duet? Bizet, yes. Georgie Bizet, yes. Or Bizet, as we say. And which song?
Which what?
Song, aria.
Which song?
The last one.
Can't deny that.
It's,
Do you know? Au fond...
Nazir and Thingamabob.
Au fond du temple.
Oh, probably, yes.
Well, never mind, eh? You've got the 2 marks, Pearlfishers and the composer Bizet. Frank, a film, one made some distance away from here, judging by the sound quality. Whose voice do we hear?
Από την πόρτα μου σαγώ, δεν υπάρχει κανείς που να μην τον αγαπώ. Και σαν το βράδυ κοιμηθώ, ξέρω πως θα τον ονειρευτώ.
It's like one of those Greek restaurants where the waitress sings, isn't it? It's never on a Sunday.
Yes, and the singer?
Presumably the mercurial lady who sang it in the film.
Yes, her full name being?
Mercury.
Yes, Melina Mercouri, 2 marks. I remember, I'm very fond of Greek popular music, and I remember once finding a bar in Corfu where there was some lovely Greek music being played on the jukebox in there. And I went in there looking obviously very English and ordered a glass of Retsina. And the manager came up and said, "Are you English?" And I said, "Yes." Whereupon he switched off the jukebox, got out his guitar and sang, "Roll out the barrel, we got the barrel of fire." Which was not really what I wanted to hear. Over now to the piano and my 2 medleys, 1 for each team. Ian and Denis, pens and paper ready. See if you can write down the titles of these 6 quick-fire tunes. How did we get on?
We didn't get on very well.
Dennis, you may have got the first one, I think.
No, I didn't.
Oh. Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes.
Oh, Rumpelstiltskin.
Ian, say it louder,
that's right.
please. Rumpelstiltskin,
yes.
yes. Fine. And then?
Walk in the Black Forest.
Yes.
I got Walk in BF. Right as fast.
I was a little surprised to see Dennis's pen moving for the next one.
Was there something, my lovely white dove?
The White Dove,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, that's 3 out of 3 so far.
You see my pen making the question mark for the next one?
Yes, it hovered over the paper, didn't it? Didn't know. Did you get the next one, Ian?
Blue Danube came
No,
in there
before
somewhere.
then came the waltz from Eugene Onegin, or Eugen Onegin, or however they like to pronounce it these days.
No.
Then you mentioned the Blue Danube.
Yeah.
And the final one?
Was another waltz.
It was indeed, yes. Don't know which one.
No.
Part of
famous
the
one.
part of the Skater's Waltz. So you got 4 out of 6. That's 2 marks out of 3. And over to the other side, a medley for John and Frank. Enough of that. Now, the first one, John.
We've already done 3.
John.
Tchaikovsky again.
Yes.
Symphony number 6, last movement.
Oh, yes, thank you. Right. Then?
Over the Seas to Sky.
No, there was another one before then.
It may have been to you, but from where I'm sitting...
John, you must have got it.
I knew the tune. Can you just remind me of the tune?
Well, yeah, I can just remind you of the title. It was the Pilgrim's Chorus from Tannhäuser, or from the Overture, if you prefer. So you get that. Then your Skyboat song,
Skyboat song.
Frank. That's right. And then came...
Oklahoma.
Well, yes, that's the
What a
show.
Beautiful Morning.
Oh, What a Beautiful Morning, yes. And then 2 more. Did you get them?
Not personally, but corporately, possibly.
It was a Strauss waltz.
Yes.
Yes. You didn't get that or the last one, did you?
The Skaters Waltz, the last one.
Yes. They were, in fact, exactly the same two, played in exactly the same way I played for the Ian and Dennis's medley. So 3 minutes ago, you were sitting listening to them being identified. But,
To this programme isn't to show off your versity.
But it is.
To let us dazzle.
You got 2 marks out of 3, so at the halfway mark or thereabouts in the show, have a look at the score, a draw. Time to hear some really good singing, in this case from Victoria de Los Angeles, as they call her in LA. Ian, she's singing here in Carmen. What, in effect, is she singing about?
She is informing a wretched member of the town guard of Seville that love is like a rebel bird, a oiseau rebelle, or a gypsy child. And she's saying, it's no good you loving me if I don't love you, but by God, if I love you, look out.
A very fair summary, I think.
It's a very free translation.
Yeah, very free indeed, yes. But it's a very free situation, too, isn't it? 2 marks. Dennis, that was in fact the habanera from Carmen. What's the origin of the word habanera?
The origin is Spanish.
Ah, yes, the old mind's racing, yes.
Because the Spanish, for the Havana in Spanish is Habana. Like cabana translates as cavana in English. So habanero is a citizen or thing appertaining to Havana. As you can't say a Havanian.
No.
Well, you can say it, but it holds up the conversation. So a habanera is a female thing or citizen from Havana.
I think that's very good, actually. For once in my life, I can go one better. Because I looked up a Spanish dictionary, and I found that haba means a broad bean, and era means a vegetable patch. So habanera is a broad bean and a vegetable patch. But I did prefer your answer on the whole. It's Cuban, actually, in origin, and you've got 2 marks. John, back to our singer. Why should this music make me think of Coppelia and Petrushka? Singing. Dolls, yes. Dolls doing what?
What, the Coppelia one? The
Specifically
one, or
dolls.
This particular one?
Well, dolls doing what? I mean, dolls being doll-like or inert or what?
Dolls attaining to human
yes,
form.
Dolls coming to life, yes.
That was De Los Angeles again, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yes.
May I tell you a rather sweet story?
Do.
A man I know in the BBC had to finalise some programme detail with De Los Angeles a little time ago when she was in London. And her husband picked up the phone. He was a rather playful man. So my friend said, could I have Madame de Los Angeles? And he said, no, she is mine, all mine.
That's what you get if you tangle with Latins, isn't it? Frank, it's your turn. Here's a dramatic moment. Same lady singer. Aha, she says in effect, or in her own language, a box, and the key to it to boot. It won't do any harm to open it. So listen, please, Frank, and then tell me, what does she find inside?
Je n'ose y toucher, et pourtant, voici la clé, je crois. Si je l'ouvrais, ma main tremble. Pourquoi? Je ne fais en rien de mal que je suppose. Oh
no! If I had gone any further, it would have given the game away.
You'd have found a mousetrap.
What are you doing?
Any cluelet?
Well. Ian is helping.
It's jewels. It's would she be Marguerite?
I should think very likely.
Because she'd be Marguerite who was tempted by Faust.
That's right. She's found jewels of enormous value inside the box.
Well, she's been given them, hasn't she, by
yes, but I mean, when she opened the lid, that's what she found inside. Yes, I don't think she's found them in the street.
The subtitle, that is, Getting Goethe's Garter.
Now, the next round, and a sound that will grab a lot of listeners by the throat. Ian, are you ripe for a little nostalgia? Ready?
Yes.
Right, here we go. Ian busy miming the rise out of the theatre pit. Yeah. Who was that, Ian?
Oh, well, it could have been one of several people. Oh, no, it couldn't because of the signature tune.
Yes.
And there's a message coming in here from...
And it's from...
Reginald Foote.
Reginald Foote.
I knew it was the whole time.
Whom I recall at the organ of the Empress Blackpool, which is now, by the way, preserved by the BBC at Manchester, which is a nice thought. But Reginald Foote it was, playing his signature tune, Keep Smiling, and that gets Ian a mark. Dennis, when I was a student, I used to go to a cinema in London where the organist not only came up through a hole in the ground, he turned a spiral of 180 degrees as well. Beside him in the pit was Van Damme's orchestra. Where was that?
Well, it actually could have been one of two places. Could have been the Trocadero Elephant and Castle, where Van Damme and his orchestra played, but where Quentin MacLean was the organist. Or it could have been the Gaumont State Kilburn, where Sidney Torch was the organist, and his signature tune would have been, I want to sing a Torch song with what do you call it when you do that?
Glissando.
Yes. Glissando, with a tremendous glissando.
Yes, I've got to sing a Torch song was the full title of the thing, and it was indeed Sidney Torch at the organ. You mentioned the cinema, the Gaumont State Kilburn.
Gaumont State Kilburn, yes.
Right. Yeah. Where, as a student, I used to see 2 first-release feature films, an entire opera with Tauber and Pagliacci on one occasion.
Cavalleria Rusticana.
Yes, that's right. Paul Robeson on the stage, Van Damme and his orchestra, and Sidney Torch at the organ.
That's right. There was once a circus, actually, because I used to work there as a stagehand, and we once had a circus there. And one of the nicest things I ever saw was that the circus, we packed backstage, as it were, while the films were on, and it had a lion in it. And we had an MGM film. And when the MGM lion roared, the lion backstage answered.
How nice, yes. I bet they were both called Leo, too, weren't they?
The MGM lion was called Jimmy 2, actually.
Jimmy 2?
He actually appeared in 2 films, which I forget now, yeah.
Terrible results can happen when cinema organs are used for a purpose for which they were not designed. There was a famous performance of The Messiah years ago in Birmingham in a cinema when it wasn't being used as a cinema, and it was just the organ was accompanying it, and everything went very well until in one of the quieter arias from Messiah, the organist, who was a rather elderly gentleman, I believe, pressed the wrong button and started the thing that goes and was then in a most frightful panic to try and stop it, because he wasn't sure quite what he had pressed to make that happen, and of course started pressing all sorts of buttons which made the lights all flash, and eventually pressed the button that sent him down into the bowels of the earth.
If we're going to
strange and rather horrible way to go.
We're going to hold up the stories with the show with organ mishap. I used to tour around as sort of on the cinema circuit, and the Regal Edmonton, the organist there, you know, the organist used to sit on a bench, a very highly polished bench, which they used to have to be able to slide along like at speed so that their foot could reach out to that foot pedal. And the organist there had an idea, and he installed a different kind of seat, which worked, you know, like on a rowing boat, the seat slides forward. Well, he installed a seat in which each of the cheeks of his bottom fitted, and it had a spring in between, so that when he stretched his left leg, and he did this, and unfortunately it snapped back rather too quickly, and he also finished organ solo, and I think the prize was a man called Phil Park, who Steve probably remembers, who was also, you know Phil, who's a composer as well, and he christened it the Nutcracker Suite.
Right. John Amis, for you, another organist signature tune type music. John, who was that?
I haven't really any idea, but I'll hazard a guess at a Scotsman called Sandy McPherson.
Well, I wouldn't ask you if it were anybody else, would I? Knowing your great depth of non-knowledge of theatre organs. It was indeed Sandy McPherson, yes, playing his own tune there. You get a mark, Sandy. Bless him. Frank, in those happy days of Quentin MacLean, Sidney Gustard, Reginald New, Reginald Porter Brown, can you recall how Sid Field announced his next selection upon the cinema organ?
Yes, he had a terrific sketch as a cinema organist. He wore dinner jacket and boots, yes. And he did that swing round and the casual wave to the audience. And he had a little table of things at the side. There was a dolly and a pink comb and a sort of lemonade glass. And the chap who was barracking from the box,
Jerry Desmond.
Jerry Desmond. What's all that junk there? Junk? Junk? Prizes?
Yes, that's right. That's true.
I think he probably changed the introduction every night to what
yes,
he...
a mark to you, certainly, for that. He minced his way at one point to right down to the front of the stage and said, I have the words here as I recall them, ladies and gentlemen, he said, last night at the Royal Albert Hall, Sir Thomas Beecham and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra played Shostakovich's 17th Symphony in C-sharp minor. Tonight, I shall play Lily of Laguna in C. But a mark to you for the recollection, Frank. This last round, we have a little singing from the teams with questions that are all concerned with places, as it happens, or locations of some sort. Denis, you first. A reference in song to Asbury Park. Piano lead-in coming up.
Is it Granada I see, or is it Asbury Park? Is this a fancy that I'm thinking of, or is it at long last? Now, when Tony Bennett sings it, he always undoes his tie here. I never understand why singers never buy shirts that fit them. They get to a stage they sort of gasp for air, don't they? Anyway, then it goes, sing love for me, Ian. Is it at long last? Go up for me. Love. No, I can't get there.
Words were nearly right.
I see.
Yeah.
Words were nearly right.
But I can explain the business about singers and shirts. The trouble is that you either look, if you're going to sing and you've got a shirt on, you either look elegant when you're not singing and undo your shirt when you are, or else you wear a shirt that looks like a horse collar and don't undo it.
Better for the audience to see the Adam's apple going up and down, isn't it, then? Yes. Got 2 marks, Dennis. John, who lived in Scarlet Town?
You want me to sing it?
Yes, please.
Oh.
2 marks.
In Scarlet Town, where I was bound, there was a fair maid dwelling, whom I had chose for to be my own. Her name was Barbara Allen.
That's right. And that's who it was. That verse gets you 2 marks. Frank, the Molyneux and Tex Beneke offer the verse. Tex Muir gives us the chorus, unaccompanied. Here we go.
Hi there, Tex, how's your new romance? The one you met at the campus dance.
Wait until you see her, you'll agree. My hometown gal's the only one for me.
Kalamazo, oh, what a girl in Kalamazoo.
Yes, that's right.
I don't want to boast, but I know she's the toast of Kalamazoo. Zoo, 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 zoo.
Yes, right. Yes. But, of course, Kalamazoo is spelt with a Z, not a Z. 2 marks. Ian, you'd like to be back with your own people in Scotland, humble, poor, and very plain though they be.
Far frae my hame I wander.
Try the
wandered
chorus.
so far I can't remember the name.
Go back home.
Just a minute.
Do you want to try the chorus?
All right. But it's all that I'm longing for my ain folk, though they be but lowly, pure and plain folk. I am far beyond the sea, but my heart will ever be at home in dear old Scotland with my own folk.
Well, I'm afraid it's time we were getting back too. Not a victory, but a draw.
Taking part in My Music were John Amis, Frank Muir, Denis Norden, and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the programme was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
You've been listening to My Music from the BBC, heard each week at this time. This is the WFMT Fine Arts Network.
The BBC presents My Music, a radio panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here's Steve Race to introduce the teams.
Thank you very much. My Music is a panel game, a game played in twos, as at Wimbledon, or for that matter, in the Arc. In competition, our first two, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden. And our opposing two, John Amis and Frank Muir. The first round concerns Twosomes as well, gentlemen. Ian, you first. Who are these two?
Well, Steve, you know, this really brings back the old days of My Music, when, for a long time, if you remember, I was always trying to bring in the fact that Glinka was the father of Russian opera.
Yes,
and there were many times that I got Glinka composing something that he didn't have anything to do with at all. But
like
this
Scheherazade,
time,
for instance.
Yes. But this time I'm confidently predicting that these two are Ruslan and Ludmilla.
That's right, it's 1842 opera. As the newspapers would probably say, Ruslan and his constant companion Ludmilla. That's the way they put it these days, yeah. Ruslan and Ludmilla by Glinka gets you 2 marks. Denis Norden, who are these duettists?
So taunt me and hurt me, deceive me, desert me. I'm yours till I die.
So in love.
So in love.
Isn't it strange that he did he did 3 words and was unmistakable.
So did she, and was unmistakable too.
Well, maybe to you, but I've dropped a Glinka on her. That was Sinatra, but I really don't know who the lady was.
In love, the way she sang something. It was Keely Smith, the other singer. Well, half a mark for Frank Sinatra, and for your second full mark, Denis, which show did that song come from?
Kiss Me Kate.
Yeah, so you've got 1.5 out of 2. John Amis, over to you. Another twosome. Who are they? Any idea?
Tristan?
Yes.
And Isolde.
Yes, Tristan and his close friend Isolde. As we would certainly say in the newspapers. And for your second mark, because you're rather knowledgeable about these things, when was it first performed?
Ha.
I'll give you a hint. It was June the 10th.
I should think in the 1860s.
Yes. Halfway through, would you think?
I should think so.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes. 1865. Yes. And that gets you 2 marks. Frank Muir, for you, a different kind of opera. Who are the singers?
Thanks, money, Mr. Wainwright. Yes, I thought that's what you said. You could rarely strike me dead, you know. You're given a fortune out of the blue, thousands of pounds, and what do you do? Give it away to anyone you can find. Mr. Stanfield, you're out of your mind.
Who were they?
Derek Nimmo.
Yes. Guest in your programmes often enough. Derek Nimmo and the other singer.
Is it from... show I always thought was the history of pin-ups, the Charlie Girl.
Yes, it was from Charlie Girl, yes.
Well, it wasn't Liverpudlian, so it wasn't Jerry Marsden, so presumably it was the original, Joe Brown.
Joe Brown was the other singer, and you've got 2 marks. Very good. Miscellaneous questions about music. Ian, the musical profession these days is full of film composers, as any film composer will tell you. But do you know who was the first composer to write a score specifically for a film?
Oh, yes. I was going to say it could have been almost anybody when the first lady sat down at the first upright piano in the pit of the first cinema. I mean, it could have been Mozart. He was well ahead of his time anyway.
Well, he wasn't that ahead of his time.
No, the first who actually wrote a score for a film.
For a film, yes. Somebody said, write a score of music to suit the characters and action in my film.
There's a Czech composer called Kodai.
No.
I don't suppose he had a relative called Kodak.
Ingenious.
Al Jolson.
No, it's
he
one
was
of those
in the first musical film. And he wrote some of the numbers.
No, long before. And it's one of those things one either does or doesn't know, and it's worth the mark in your case to find out, isn't it?
Oh, sure.
The first composer to write a score specifically for a film was Saint-Saëns in 1908, and the film was called L'Assassinat du Duc de Guise. Can't give you a mark. Denis, where might you find a swell oboe?
In a film called Easter Parade, where Judy Garland and Fred Astaire both dressed up as oboes, and they sang "We're a Couple of Swells."
I wondered what you might say, but I hadn't wondered that. I hadn't got around to wondering that. Very good.
Because I hadn't got around to...
It's not an oboe... No, it can't be an oboe swell on an organ. That's ridiculous.
Yes, a swell oboe on an organ. Yes,
Well, right.
yes. Ridiculous or not, you've got a mark. Dennis had the mark anyway, yes. Incidentally, a swell oboe pipe, along with a piccolo and 3 tuba solos, was stolen from Derby Cathedral in June 1973.
Is nothing sacred.
Is nothing sacred, Frank said.
I thought you'd found a swell oboe and a dude organ.
John, he was 12 when the first gramophone records were made. 96 years later, 5 months after his death, his own music became available at last on records. Who was he? It was...
Havergal Bryan.
Dr. Havergal Bryan, yes, whose symphonies numbers 10 and 21 were issued on an LP in May 1973, 5 months after his death. Wonderful old chap, Havergal Bryan.
I had a rather nice interview with him, and Robert Simpson was talking to him and said, "Did your wife go along with you? Did she like music?" And he said, yes. Oh, she liked music up to a point. He said, "I think up to about Brahms' 3rd Symphony. I don't think she would have liked the 4th. One had a sort of view of some tremendous chasm between the 2 symphonies, which Mrs. Bryan couldn't quite leap over.
Yeah. I was present at the Albert Hall in 1966, wasn't it, when Havergal Bryan's enormous symphony, I forget which number it is, was performed. He wrote it in the year in which I was born, and he had to wait until 1966 to hear it performed. And I remember after it had been done, we all applauded, of course, and kept on applauding at the Albert Hall, and then this tiny little old man, well into his 90s, came on the stage and stood there looking somehow rather bemused. And I remember he looked as though he'd been screwed to the floor. And I thought, yes, my friend, you've waited for this all my lifetime. As long as you care to stand there, I'll go on applauding. And we did. We kept him there, and he obviously soaked up all the applause that he'd so much merited and not had over the previous 50 years, or however many years it was. Marvellous. Frank, your question. A composer working on a new piece wrote to his friend, "It is very noisy, has no great artistic value, and I am composing it without much enthusiasm." What was the work in question? It wasn't one
Was
of
he
mine.
writing in English?
No.
Then why did you say it in English?
Because you would not have understood it in Russian.
True.
It's the sort of thing
He's
I
a
would
Russian
try
composer. The Russian composer.
Yes.
I thought it's a noisy piece. I thought it was Till Eulenspiel. That's a nice noisy bit, isn't it? They bang that big drum in the middle.
Comparably noisy.
So it's something...
Check.
Is it the dum bells bong de cannon?
Well, I'm going to give you a mark. It was in fact Tchaikovsky writing to Madame von Meck about this. You're right, 18 Belve Overture, and that was what he wrote. It is very noisy, has no great artistic value, and I'm composing it without much enthusiasm. On now, back to you again, Ian. Mood music, an expression that's used in films and television for orchestral music written by the yard to induce a certain mood in the listener. I'm going to play to each of you about 15 seconds of mood music, and I want you please to come in when it's over, either with a description of the scene at that point, or the actual commentary, or even perhaps dialogue that you might expect to hear. So, Ian, here's some mood music for you.
There is enough acid in your stomach to burn a hole in the carpet. But you do not need to endure those terrible post-luncheon and dinner pains if you take Bicobats. They will soothe away all that acid and turn it into a beautiful, soothing alkali within 5 minutes.
Yes, I'll accept that. Yes, 2 marks to you. The composer Tom Dissevelt, in his dull way, called it Ignition. I'm sure he'd rather have called it whatever your product was called.
Steve, will you tell us when we get to the one that you composed, so that because it's rather nasty when we take the mickey out of other composers.
Well, it's kind of you to point out that I usually slip one of mine
Yes.
in, you know, and I'll return the kindness by telling you that it's yours, and here it is. Here it is.
Somehow, I couldn't face going back to that empty apartment. I said to the bartender, slip me another shot of rye. And then I saw her. She was leaning up against a letterbox with the breeze riffling through her crew cut. I looked at her. She had a full, ripe body, eyes that a man could drown in, red, wet, pouting lips. And yet there was something about her I liked.
You know, I thought at first you were going to get a succession of laughs by quoting the actual script of, was it Farewell, My Lovely? Was
or
it?
The Big Sleep.
Yeah, Big Sleep, one of those, yeah. Yes, I in my innocence called it Big City Blues, but you've certainly got the right idea in 2 marks. John, here's one for you, and I didn't write it.
The Day That the Circus Hit Town.
Yes, that would do as a title. Any idea how the dialogue would go, or...
Well, my trouble is I have to sweep up after the horses, but thank God it ain't the elephants.
We're all right then, yes. 2 marks to you. Paul Feneley, the composer, called it Horses for Courses. Frank, here's some music for you.
We apologise for the breakdown in transmission. We hope you enjoyed the music. And now back to the studio in Panorama.
Gets you 2 marks. Matter of fact, everybody gets 2 marks in that particular round. The composer was Jack Coles. The piece was called Bow and Curtsy. And at this point in the show, let's have a look at the score. And I see that leading by 1.5 marks at the moment are John Amis and Frank Muir. Right, let's get back to opera and operetta. Ian, what took place on December the 30th, 1879 at the Bijou Theatre, Paynton, Devonshire?
Oh, a very happy evening that was. Well, what really took place was some curious way of avoiding the law of copyright.
Well, not so much avoiding it as establishing it.
Establishing it, yes. But, yes, the law of copyright was involved because I don't know quite whether it was just before they produced the Pirates of Penzance in America or before they did it at the Opéra Comique, which is where it had its debut in London. But at the Bijou Theatre, Paynton, that was the first place that ever saw or heard the Pirates of Penzance.
Yes, to establish copyright, that's right. It was at Paynton, down in Devonshire, because the D'Oyly Carte Company was doing a season in Torquay. And gets you what a mark, I think, for that one is. Dennis, we're going to hear now from the Pirates themselves. Dennis, the question They wanted to copyright the cheer, you see. Foiled again. Dennis, the question to you, why were the pirates so bad at their job?
Well, as far as any performance of Gilbert and Sullivan that I've ever seen, which Captain Cook could count on the fingers of his bad hand, it's because most of them are bank clerks and accountants and solicitors during the daytime. That they were bad at their job is established by the fact they didn't wait for the chairman to stop talking before they came in and interrupted him there, didn't they? And now the message is coming through.
Yes, Ian,
the moving finger writes, and having writ, I will move on.
Yes.
And I'll start the first 8 lines of the answer.
Ian,
they were notoriously soft-hearted and were in fact members of the, it looks like gynocracy, aristocracy, who had strayed from the path of wrecked. They had stayed, we got as far as wrecked, and then the moving finger stopped and didn't move. Etude.
Well, the fact is they were too tender-hearted. They said they would never rob an orphan, if you remember. And whenever they got into took over a ship, word had got ahead of them, and they found that all the members of the ship's company were orphans, so they couldn't rob any of them. Rather nice.
The other delightful part of the pirates, unless you're going on to ask somebody else something about the pirates.
I am.
Oh, you are? Well, I'll shut up.
Yes. Tell us, I'll come back to you later, perhaps. John, here is another song from the Pirates of Penzance.
The Major General comes, so quickly hide.
Yes, yes, the Major General comes. Yes, yes, the Major General comes.
Yes, yes, the Major General comes.
John, who comes in at that point?
Just his rank.
No, I'd like his name as well, please.
Oh, I see. I thought you were making it nice and easy for me. I am a Major General.
Not Major General Livingston, I presume.
No, I don't know.
You don't know. I couldn't have given you it more clearly than that. Major General Stanley, it was, actually. Do you know who he was, what relationship he bore to somebody else in the show? Or what kind of a Major General he was? That would do.
I was very little when I saw these shows.
Yes, I know, yes.
He was the very model of a modern Major General.
Yes, that's right. Well, I think half a mark then. He was the very model.
He was somebody's daddy, wasn't he?
He was the heroine's, yes, Mabel's
yes,
father.
Mabel's
right, yes. Half a mark out of one, which didn't know his name. Frank, can you explain this scene?
Upon my word, this is most curious, most absurdly whimsical. 5 1/4.
5 1/4. Oh, it's a very tedious Gilbertian joke, this. That he's supposed to be... It's Fred.
Yes,
it's Fred, the apprentice pirate. And he's supposed to be... ceased to be an apprentice when he's 21, but he's born in leap year, you see. He was born on February 29th. So although he thinks he's 21, he's only had 5 1/4 birthdays, you see. And he goes on and on about it. Paradox, the most exciting paradox.
Yes. You don't think much of Gilbert?
No.
Well, yeah, but not then.
Oh, I see.
It was one of his lapses.
This is actually what Frederick goes on to sing at that point.
I am a little boy of 5.
Paradox, very risible, as Frank pointed out. And on to the next round. I read somewhere that the Guild of Circus Clowns has adopted the song Be a Clown as its official theme music, and I wondered whether people, perhaps in other walks of life, might feel disposed to adopt a signature tune of their own. Road users, for instance. So how about a song for the Guild of Lady Drivers? Let's give it... Well, Ian, I'll give you a rest for answering first, because you always get these questions first. John, you first. A signature tune for the Guild of Lady Drivers. What would be suitable, do you think, for them?
I don't know where I'm going. I've no idea where to park, dear.
Well, all right, yes. Frank, something for them?
I'm riding along on the crest of the road and no one can pass me by.
I think we'd better leave by a different door or something.
Or how about dense little lady?
Oh, that's clever, yes, I like that. I prefer that, actually, yes, that's for your two, Mark.
Have that.
Ian, yes, I'll have that one. Ian, any ideas yet?
Well, I am married to an extremely good driver.
Aren't we all?
And I drive a great deal in the course of a year, and I find that, on the whole, I'm more scared by men drivers than by lady drivers. So I'm going to be very careful on this one. But with the little possible warning that love is just around the corner.
Oh, that's nice, yes, rather sweet. Dennis?
I think we are statistic. I think the statistics show that actually we're being male chauvinists, if not pigs, road hogs. Anyway, I think where lady drivers do show up more is in the garage. When they bring the car in with something wrong with it. That's possibly when they're less at ease. Two suggestions. One is, I know you remember a song, "This is my first repair, so please be kind." And the other one was a tisket, a tasket, I think I've blown a gasket.
Right, yes. Yes. Ah, very nice. With more time to think about it, I wondered about back in your own backyard, perhaps, or I'm always on the outside. But we want it to be understood that we don't really mean any of this. We think lady drivers are marvellous, and we're all married to good drivers, aren't we? Aren't we? Yes. Right. Finally, some singing. Dennis, you first. Yours is a 3-letter word. Jack Buchanan leads you in. See if you can take the song through to the end for 2 marks.
Dreams I know can never come true. Seem they're so I'd ever be blue.
Who means my happiness? Whom would I answer yes to? Well, you'll never guess whom. No one but you.
2 marks to you. John, again, a 3-letter word, spelt Z-I-G. One of the world's most famous tunes, I think from your expression you may know it, one of the world's most famous tunes is called Ziggy Ziggy Zig. And can you sing it, please, for 2 marks?
Zig, ziggy, ziggy, zig, ziggy, 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 zig, ziggy, ziggy, zig, ziggy, ziggy, zig, ziggy, 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 zig, ziggy, ziggy, zig.
Well, that's not quite the right words.
No,
but
very
it's the right tune.
Song, which Kathy Barbarian sings.
Yes, there's a bit later on. Da dee da 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 dee, le vent d'hiver souffle, something like that. Do you know that bit?
Yes, la dame dit-on, c'est une baron, marquise ou baron. Becomes a rather snobbish little story about a little orgy that's going on at night. But my favourite line, death is there too, to provide the third person of the orgy.
Really?
But there's a wonderful line at the end when all of a sudden it stops, and da-da-da-da-da, boing, and the line is, mais, psst, tout à coup, la coque a chanté. And it ends up something like, et vive l'amour et l'égalité.
The tune being, did anyone in the audience recognise the tune? Yes, thank you, somebody did. Danse Macabre was the tune, and Ziggy Ziggy Zig is the vocal version. Frank, Jack Buchanan again leads you in.
Just a moment, you've got the wrong tempo for me, haven't you? Don't expect me to sing it in waltz time, surely. Oh, well, all right. No, I don't think so. I'll wait till you're all through.
Frank.
You must say yes to Mr. Brown. Yes. No more, less to Mr. Brown.
It's his key, not yours.
He is the great white chief, you know. And those are all the words I know.
Yes.
Key trouble.
Well, Buchanan's key is not Muir's key, I'm afraid. Ian, we can't let you go without hearing your favourite 3-letter word. So good, I always think, for blood cooling. May I give you a chord?
Do. Mud, mud, glorious mud. Nothing quite like it for cooling the blood. So follow me, follow, down to the hollow, and there let us wallow in glorious
And so we end my music with a wallow in glorious mud and a victory by 1 mark, I see, for John Amis and Frank Muir. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amis, Frank Muir, Denis Norden, and Ian Wallace. The questions were compiled by our chairman, Steve Race, and the program was produced for the BBC by Tony Schreier.
In May of this year, the My Music team recorded a special program as part of the Lilian Baylis Centenary Festival on the stage of the Sadler's Wells Theatre. It was first broadcast in May, and tonight you can hear a shortened version of the program.
We present My Music, a musical panel game devised by Edward J. Mason and Tony Schreier. And here to introduce the teams is Steve Race.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Today, My Music goes visiting. Here, on this stage where Grimaldi performed, where Sybil Thorndike acted, Margot Fonteyn danced, where the first night of Peter Grimes made operatic history, we now have, of all things, a radio panel game, played between, on one side, Ian Wallace and Denis Norden, and on the other side, John Amis and Frank Muir. Before a select audience consisting of persons of the very first distinction, we join the Sadler's Wells celebrations on the occasion of the Lilian Baylis Centenary Festival. It was Lilian Baylis who laid the foundations for the Royal Ballet, for Sadler's Wells Opera, and the National Theatre. And one likes to think that she might have enjoyed this not-too-serious entertainment of ours. Certainly she would have revelled in some of the music we shall be hearing. For example, the operatic overtures in this first round. Ian Wallace, the first question goes to you. From which overture does this come? And so on.
Having listened with rapt attention, Steve, to your introduction to this program, with this audience of persons of the first distinction and Margot Fonteyn and Grimaldi and so on, really it would have been rather dreadful. They play an operatic overture, and one said one didn't know it. Fortunately, I do know it. It comes from Der Freischütz,
yes,
the marksman, by Weber.
That gets you 2 marks.
And thank you.
Dennis, this is a moment in an opera just after the curtain rises. A prelude to what, would you say?
Just what I wanted. Thank you.
I'm so glad you like it.
Dennis? That ripple from the audience, because I handed Ian my pen.
What is that quotation that says, the moving hand moves on?
Yeah.
In this case, the moving hand hasn't even been able to get started.
It's the finger, actually. Never mind.
I wanted... What is it? Just what I wanted.
Just what I wanted. I'm glad you liked it. Yes. It's the start of an opera.
Is it?
Or a short one, a very short one.
Is it it's a Menotti, is it?
Ah, we're getting warm, yes. Did you have any idea of your own, Dennis, as to what it
No,
would
I
be?
didn't.
No,
I didn't at all.
Well, now,
Giancarlo Menotti has a hyphen in the first 2/3 of his name. I don't know whether that counts as musical knowledge or just punctuation.
I think Ian can...
It's not the telephone.
Yes, it's that little moment is the prelude to...
The right number.
Yes. It's the prelude to a succession of interruptions from The Telephone, which is the name of the short opera by, as you said, Giancarlo Menotti. So you'll get 2 marks.
Not to be confused with L'après-midi phone.
It's going to be one of those nights.
It is indeed, yes.
Well, Frank and I know that we are along as resident Philistines.
Well, that opera was on here on this stage in 1956, for those who were interested in such things. John, this is the beginning of an overture, remarkable, I think, in the tragedy it evokes right from the first bar.
Dido.
And?
Aeneas.
Yes, they go very nicely together. Yes.
Yeah.
By
Henry Purcell.
That would do very nicely, yes. And that's the
performance I remember with greatest pleasure was the one at Bernard Miles's house in St. John's Wood, when Kerstin Flagstad took the part, and the contract stated that she should be given 1 pint of Guinness per performance.
Yes.
No money, just beer.
That was, he was then Mr. Bernard Miles, and this was the precursor of the theatre, wasn't it?
That's right.
Present theatre, the Mermaid.
He said, actually, you'll get your guineas during the performance.
That voice you heard was the voice of Frank Muir, to whom we asked, Frank, what do these bars...
I wasn't singing.
No. What do these bars introduce?
It's Sir Gilbert O'Sullivan, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, that's right. Which?
It's the Mikado.
Yes, that's right.
So outside Chichipu.
Yes. Purists will be writing to me in scores or even hundreds to tell me that the overture was not physically written by Sullivan, but by somebody called Hamilton Clark. But in those days, of course, it didn't much matter who wrote the overture, did it? It was considered not to matter who orchestrated it, so long as the tunes were there. Anyway, Sullivan, Mikado, 2 marks to everybody in that round, as it happens. On to the next round. Virtually all the recorded music, by the way, in this program was originally heard on this stage in one form or another, opera or ballet. And it's the ballet we turn now for this round. Ian, in 1841 was presented on this stage, I quote, an entirely new, grand, melodramatic, choreographic, fantastic, traditional tale of superstition in 2 acts, founded on the singularly wild and impressive ballet pantomime now performing at the Grand Opera in Paris with music by Monsieur Adam. What was its title?
You had me very worried there through all that. But yes. This is a lady called Grisi who came over here to dance Giselle.
Yes, Giselle, or do you know the subtitle it had at the time?
No.
No. Well, they are Giselle or the Night Dancers, it's called.
Oh.
But you certainly have 2 marks.
I think it was Grisi's father who said that if he could hear her dancing on the stage, he would kill her. He having trained her, of course.
Yes, that's right. Dennis, we come to your question. I must just say I've had an enormous amount of help in compiling these questions, as well as a lot of pleasure from reading Denis Arundel's book called The Story of Sadler's Wells. Like all the best books, I gather it's now out of print. I think he is here. Denis Arundel, if you're here, would you like to take a bow? Where are you? You're in the circle somewhere. Please, Denis Arundel. There he is. Well,
I haven't got a copy of the book handy.
I was going to say, Mr. Arundel, kindly keep pianissimo if you're going to give the answers, because a lot of these will come from your book. For instance, Dennis's question. Dennis, in the book, Denis Arundel tells of a performer named Saunders. Can you tell us, please, what was so special about Saunders' feet? in 1782.
They were killing him. In when?
1782.
There's a popular film going round, but they keep getting asked the question, where were you in 82? Was Saunders' feet, presumably, if it's a ballet round, he was the first person to do something. He was the first person to do a fouette, completely covered in corn plasters on each toe. The name Saunders doesn't really raise any kind of tinkle at all.
Well, there you are.
Not having the book.
No.
Dennis,
As I did.
Could he perhaps have had little
candles?
Yes, he could have had little illuminated corn plasters, thus earning himself the name of Twinkle Toes.
Well,
see, we in our way, Frank and I, can go back nearly that far for material.
Anything to do with corn and we're in there pitching.
Mr. Arundel, do I give him 1 or 2 marks for that?
He's left, I think.
Yes, 2 marks it is for Denis. Actually, the answer I had here, Saunders' feat in 1782, was that while standing on a wire, he balanced a French horn on his lips and performed a minuet without using his hands. I think I preferred your answer, Denis. John Amos, which performer here at Sadler's Wells was, according to Dr. Johnson, gazed at with the eye of wonder, contemplated with the smile of approbation, and gratified with the murmur of applause? A brook. Tough one. Wonder.
Well, the guess, Grimaldi?
No.
Was it a singer?
No, not a singer.
An actor?
Of a kind. Certainly a performer. Yes.
A performer.
Was the performer a ham?
Yeah, yes, actually. Tell us, yes.
It was the learned pig.
Yes, it was. It was the learned pig, which told the time, revealed any lady's inward thoughts, and could distinguish different colours. And it gave performances here to the throng. And Dr. Johnson said it was gazed at with the eye of wonder, contemplated with a smile of approbation, and gratified, I'm glad to hear it, gratified, with the murmur of applause. The learned pig.
Johnson said it was a tribute to education, because if the pig hadn't been educated into doing these things, it would have been killed off at the age of 1.
Yes.
So justified education.
Was it lived to a ripe old age, I believe, yes. Anyway, 2 marks from your side. Frank, your own question here. At a theatre on this site in 1756, the audience was entertained by, I quote, an ingenious musician who disposed 12 bells about his person, and by jerking and other movements, he played triple peals and bob majors. How were the 12 bells arranged, Frank, in order to make this possible?
Painfully. The last one was the trouble. The tenor bell. You speak to the right man.
Do I really?
You do.
How's that?
I was a bell ringer. I was a campanologist, Leighton Parish Church, till the age of 14 and a half, when I got an appendicitis, and never rang a bell again. These are handbells, weren't they?
Yes.
And handbells are extremely difficult to ring. They're on a thong, and the clapper doesn't tweedle around in all directions, as in the orange tea rooms, where you go, tinkle, 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 and the faded gentlewoman comes in with another assorted pastry. In handbell ringing, the clapper moves in one plane only, and has levers, so that you have to give it a sort of a long flick, a long steady flick in order to make it ring. So, he disposes these so that he has one on each foot, so he kicks forward in that plane. 2, right?
2 on each.
Will you keep a score? Have you an electronic calculator? That's 2. Knees, sideways.
Well, that would do, but...
That'll do.
No.
Right, Mr. Arundel? Duke of Norfolk, isn't it? No harm in being polite. Up and down with the hands.
Yes, why not?
Sideways with the elbows.
You could do, yeah.
Good, fair enough.
Yes.
My lord?
Enough.
8.
Yeah, I think this is good enough, yes. Yours,
well,
your
it's the
way
last one, which... All I can say is that it has to be performed standing up.
Your way is perfectly feasible, Frank. He did actually have 2 on each foot, 2 on each hand, and 4 on his head. And as you say, the clapper on each bell moves only in a single play.
Incidentally, treble bob major, I can't remember how that Stedman doubles and Granser triples last about 4 hours. So it must have been quite a performance.
We once did bell ringing on television, do you remember?
Yes, with the sleigh bell.
Yes, we at the very early days of Alexandra Palace, we said we could do handbell ringing, and we brought along a whole table of handbells, and we got the orchestra to play the bells of St. Mary, and we picked up bells absolutely at random, and tuned them, and there wasn't one letter of complaint from anybody.
You look as though you know what you're doing.
Yes, lovely. Well, now for some operatic music. You're going to hear Ian, one of the most recognizable of voices. For 1 mark, who was he? And for the 2nd mark, which opera does this come from?
A moment sweet when all cares are forgotten, and we may rest at peace with the world. Yes, Mano.
Yes, Ian?
Yes, Heddle Nash.
Yes,
Who else?
unmistakable, that
Yes.
voice, yes. He appeared here in Faust and in Arthur Benjamin's Tale of Two Cities. What was the opera? There was a heavy hint.
Yes, the opera was Manon.
Yes, that's right. There's your 2 marks.
And
what was your first operatic performance here?
My first
operatic
operatic?
here.
Well, my only operatic performance here, in fact, was a very happy time when I was invited to guest here, as they say, in Rossini's opera Cinderella, singing the part of the bold, bad Baron Don Magnifico. I don't really see why that should cause a great deal of mirth, but still. But that was not, in fact, my first appearance on this particular stage, which was much further back than that. It was just after the war, when I appeared in a play with music by James Bridie. I mean, the play was by James Bridie and the music was by Cedric Thorpe Davy, or Professor Cedric Thorpe Davy of St. Andrews University. And it was a play called The Forrigan Reel, with some very lively dancing in it, which I didn't take part in, with the star and the producer, Alistair Sim.
Oh, yeah.
And we had the late Duncan McCrae was in it, and Molly Urquhart, and lots of other people. And it was a very happy experience. But unfortunately, in 1945, when I think this was, nobody knew of Sadler's Wells as a place to come and see a Scottish play. If we'd been called ourselves an opera with Alistair Sim baritone, I think we might have perhaps tempted an audience to come, but we played here with great fun for ourselves for 2.5 weeks and then faded into oblivion. But it was a very happy experience. That was my first.
Well, I remember Forrigan's Reel. It was a great entertainment. And I remember Alistair Sim delivering a wonderful line, which is, "Sudden death is a curious thing. It would kill a horse."
Yes, right. And the great sadness to us all was that there was a marvellous number, a point number in it, which we could never persuade him to sing. He would only dance this number, and his dance was received with enormous success. But had he sung this number, which he sang at the dress rehearsal, and we all applauded. And however, he was very modest about his singing, and he wouldn't do it. Remember, it started something like, a lady she was dressing, a-dressing for the ball, when she spied a great big tinkler leaning up against the wall, with his kilt and his sleeve-bit sporran, and his whiskers flying free, and his bonny ragged bonnet hanging low upon his bree, on his bree, tiddle-diddle-diddle, and he was playing the fiddle. Very sad that was. If it even gets around after one verse.
Well, memories of your performances here. Dennis, you, I believe, have not previously appeared on this stage. Have you?
Well, on exactly the same principle that Elizabeth Schwarzkopf has not appeared in Opportunity Knocks. Well, as they said, the talent is there, but it's the wrong venue.
Dennis, for your question, a very well-known bit of opera.
A world, allow me, sweet ladies and gentlemen, I pray you hear while I appeal.
What is it he wants to say?
I was so excited at getting the opera, I wasn't really listening to the word. Ian said it's Denis Noble, and I said, he doesn't want to know who it is, he wants to know what the opera is.
Especially as it was John Hargreaves singing. So the question, what is it that the chap wants to tell us? What does he want to say?
He eventually goes on to say, there used to be what still is, a very great North Country comedian called Albert Medley, who used to tour with a show. The touring show was called On with the Medley. An illusion which escaped most of its audience. But he eventually does go on to say, On with the Motley, or Vesti la Juba. I don't know if it's Vesti la Juba or Jubila Vesta, but it's that's much later.
What's he saying in effect? Something about performers. I mean, that's what I'm after.
He's saying that performers are people like any other.
Yes, actors have hearts too. That's right. Too much too.
You know, in Parma, in Italy, a very tough place where the audience really throw things if they don't like people. And apparently there was a performance of this opera, and the audience didn't like the baritone. And so when he came on and said, "A word, allow me," they said, "No, no!" And that was the shortest performance of the work on record.
John, your question. People in opera all seem to be saying either good evening or good night, or sometimes good morning. We've put together a sort of potpourri of greetings. Can you give me, after this little medley, the composer's name and identify two of the operas?
Good morning. Give my love to the maidens, wish luck to the men.
Next line. The first one is, I think, from Albert Herring.
Yes. That's right.
Second one, I wasn't quite sure about. The third one is from The Rape of Lucretia.
Yes.
The fourth one was Owen Wingrave, and the last was Peter Grimes.
My goodness, yes. The only one you missed was Billy Budd. You certainly get your 2 marks. And shall we go for the formality of telling me who the composer was, please?
Yes.
What's English?
I was once asked to do a parody of a Benjamin Britten thing, and we invented a composer called Solomon Scotland. But
yes,
too subtle for this audience. Yes. But anyhow, the answer is Benjamin Britten.
Benjamin Britten, yes, your second mark. Frank, listen to a lovely ensemble and then tell me what has this music to do with a member of the Megachiroptera family. Lovely singing. Pity to interrupt it in a way, but have you got the answer, Frank? A member of the Megachiroptera family.
It's a bat.
Yes, that's right. So...
I don't know what the music... the music is the cricket and a half. It's adaptation of Charles Dickens. Or the Fledermaus, Die Fledermaus.
Die Fledermaus, yes. Do you know why it's called the bat?
Well, he thought of calling it the bath, and it seemed inappropriate. And then he thought of calling it A Quiet Day with Clichés. And that, although appropriate, it didn't seem to be a very good title. And somebody said, why not Die Fledermaus?
The bat, exactly. That's right, yes. He was going to call it the ring at one point. But
no, it's been done.
It's been done. It's been done. Well,
what's the real answer?
2 marks to you. It's about a man who goes to Ian knows this only too well. A man who goes to a fancy dress ball disguised as a bat.
I know the plot, but why would you call it the bat? Oh, the bat, yes.
Because that's right. Among the singing there, some real old Wells favourites. John Heddle Nash, Marion Studholme, Victoria Elliott, Anna Pollock, Alexander Young and Frederick Sharp.
I don't see that he looks like a bat unless he hangs upside down. They never do they?
This is the point at which I offer my piano medleys. Frank and Denis always make out that they dread this round, and Frank groans audibly as he did just then. Reminds me of a critic many years ago who came here to see the infant Kean, Master H. Smith, play Richard III, and he suggested afterwards that the manager should put a sign outside the theatre's main door that read, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." So abandon hope first, Ian and Denis, because this is your piano medley. 6 tunes, all having some connection with dancing. Ready? Here we go. How did we get on? I don't know. Ian, you may have got the first one or two. Did you?
No. Oh, there was a bit of Chopin.
No, before that there was a bit of...
The number 2 I was going to say was Chopin.
Yes, no, the first, before that was an entr'acte from Rosamunde by Schubert.
Oh, yes.
Yes, a bit of Chopin, balletically, what would you call it?
A waltz.
Well, balletically, not terpsichoristically or something, you know, as a ballad.
Oh, I see. Oh, yes. Sylphie.
Yes, it's the nocturne in A flat, actually. Number 2. So that's one you've got. Then came one that Denis knew.
Yeah.
Yes. We both knew that.
What was it?
Dance, 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 little lady. I had time to practically write the whole lyric of that.
Yes. Then came...
Bit of Swan Lake.
Yes. Sen from Swan Lake, yes. Mm. And then, my left hand, executed.
Yes, I got very frustrated there.
No, it was a little bit of, you didn't get it, Denis, Invitation to the Waltz, or Spectre de la Rose, of course, from balletically speaking. Didn't get that. And the last song of all, Denis...
I could have gone.
I could have danced all night.
Yes, all right. Yes. Right, a medley now for John and Frank. Right.
What are the other three?
So, you must have got the first one, Frank, although...
Charlemagne, yeah.
No, it wasn't Charlemagne, no.
No.
No, it was...
I've got...
Frank is bursting.
For the girl in my arms.
Yes, what's the boy? What's the title? Frank.
I'm dancing with tears in my eyes.
Yes, I said they were all something to do with dancing. Yes. Then came...
I always try and swank if it's a popular tune, and I always get it wrong. It's a shame. Chopin waltz.
Yes, not a waltz, no, but in 3 times.
Mazurka.
Yes, Mazurka, number 23, Opus 33, number 2. Then came...
See me dance the boat.
No, before then there was something else, actually.
Was it?
Yes.
Tchaikovsky.
Well, yes, but I really can't give you it.
Can't you?
The waltz from Eugene Onegin. No, I can't give you that because
I've seen that.
Then came the one you mentioned, Frank.
See me dance
the polka. Yes, that's right. 2 more.
Cornish flower dance.
Floral dance, yes, and...
Carmen.
Yes, what from Carmen? Not, for instance, not the jewel song.
What is it? Habanera?
No, that would be dom.
Well, then what's that other dance called?
Somebody in the audience. Seguidilla. That's right, yes, you've got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half marks, 2.5 to you, Marks, there. And we press on. You're going to hear 4 pieces of orchestral music. Each is from a ballet. 2 marks to you for an indication as to what you think is happening on the stage at that point. You don't have to be right, you just have to be inventive. Ian Wallace, here's yours.
At that moment, the production line came to a halt, and obviously the corps de ballet, the ladies all came rushing on, dressed as car workers' wives, to find out why the production line had stopped. Certainly there seemed to be some sort of conflict or battle going on there.
Yes, well, I think you might get 2 marks for that. Conflict is absolutely right, because at that point the king is vanquished, the chess game is over, it is in fact checkmate. And it's, of course, the music from Sir Arthur Bliss's ballet in the 1937-8 season here. Why not 2 marks to you? Because you've got a very good realization of what might have happened. Denis Norden, what's happening here? Chords the giveaway. Denis.
Not too good. It certainly didn't give anything away to me. It sounded like an arrangement of 3, somewhere between 3 Blind Mice and Ain't She Sweet, done with a hangover.
It was like 3 Blind Mice.
There are 2 things which I can never follow, and one is mime, and one is ballet. I never know what they're supposed to be doing. It's an awful place to make this admission, possibly the worst place in England to make the admission that you cannot ever follow the story of a ballet. But I can never follow what Marcel Marceau, I have to keep saying, what's he doing? What's he doing? Oh, he's going upstairs. Oh, yes.
Meet a fellow sufferer.
Yes. I won't. I'll only say that it sounded like the kind of music that those kind of ballet companies that tend to come from the Benelux countries, or what used to be called the Benelux countries, come over and dance nude. And the only quotation I have fitting to this occasion tonight is one of Robert Helpman's, who said about nude ballet dancing, and particularly about nude male ballet dancers. He was against it because it's in the very nature of things that not everything stops when the music does.
I'm finding it very hard to follow your answers with the truthful answers. What you heard then, music, was the start of Stan Kenton's Somnambulism, the first performance by Kenneth Macmillan's Sadler's Wells choreographic group in 1953. Rather early days for such permissive stuff as you later went on to describe, Dennis. Somnambulism was the title, not to be confused with that other Somnambula. John, what does this depict?
Sounds like a bit of music that William Walton might have thrown out and not included in Facade, but I believe it's probably Stravinsky.
Yes, it is Stravinsky, as a matter of fact, yes. Do you know what it is? Or what it's from? I can see them doing it with little feathers in their green hats.
It's not the elephant piece, is it?
I practically tell you that they're Swiss gentlemen, and you say it's not the elephant.
Sorry. I missed that.
The love of three cheeses.
Then it's Baiser de la Fée.
Yes.
If it's Swiss, because it's a very exciting ballet if it's about Switzerland.
Yes.
Somebody once said if the Swiss had made their own mountains, they would have been very much flatter. But I lived there for a time and I was very happy, so I won't have any anti-Swiss jokes.
No, that's right. No. Frank, what's happening in this ballet, or rather this mouse?
What's happening in this program? It's a sad little numero, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It shouldn't be, of course. It'd be played about twice that tempo. But on the occasion of this performance, the corps de ballet girls, all dressed in the same small room, of course. Unhappily, 3 other girls were all wearing 3 left shoes. The other 3 were all wearing 3 right shoes. So they had to slow down the music. Which is
I think John's written something.
Yes, they've all got scarves wrapped around their necks, and they're looking for jobs.
No, that's not.
As you wear, chaps. Job's comforters.
Job's comforters. Yes.
Ralph Vaughan Williams.
Yes, one of the most splendid ideas that even the splendid Vaughan Williams ever had. When he wanted to depict Job's comforters in his Mask for Dancing, he chose to use those saxophones, those sycophantic saxophones. It's absolutely marvellous musical thought. Anyway, you'll get 2 marks too. By tradition in this programme, or I might say by a twist of savage irony, we always end with a song from each of our contestants. For fairly obvious reasons, we save Ian's song till last, which means starting with Denis. Dennis, when I rang you up and told you we were doing a programme from the stage of Sadler's Wells, your answer was, ay.
That's because you reversed the charges.
That answer made me think you might put ay into notes of music for 2 bucks. Could you do that, please?
Unaccompanied?
Yes, unaccompanied.
And Sadler's Wells?
Yes. No, why not? For the first
turn the place back into a spa. In Spanish, I will do it, yeah?
Oh, will you?
Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegra el cielito, lindo los corazones.
Oh, I thought that at the very best you might sing, ay, 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 ay. Rather like a song we used to sing in my dance band days. We used to sing to our dancers, love is all, 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 and so on.
They told you not to mention dance bands here.
Oh, sorry. That's right. John, among the composers who conducted their own works here was Sir William Walton. This is by him. Can you pick up where our reciter leaves off?
When dawn passed, Quito arrived at the seaside, where the donkeys hide tide braid. He saw the bandit old Joe in a black cape, whose slack shape waved like the sea.
Thetis, rota, treaties, no to wheaties, silver like the sea, the lovely treaties, treaties, poem, rotas, notice that the she will steal the weaklings luggage like Babel before the League of Nations grow. So Joe put the luggage and the label in the pocket of Flo the kangaroo. Through trees like rich hotels, the abode of dreamers ease fed she, goading the load and currying the load through the marine scene to the sea. Need I go on?
That's what I say. If you don't know it, fake it.
It's perfectly marvellous sit-wall stuff. That was John Amos, and before him Cleo Lane, and John's got 2 marks. Frank, we mustn't forget that Sadler's Wells was a music hall, not to mention the fact that the Old Vic, of course, got its name from the Royal Victoria Coffee Music Hall. Can you think of a music hall song about an ill-matched couple whose height is respectively 4'2" and 6'3"?
Gus Ellen.
Yes, Gus Ellen's song. Yeah.
It's a great big shame, and if she belonged to me, I'd let her know. Married to a fellow what is 6'3", and only 4'2". They hadn't been married not a month no more, when underneath the thumb goes Jim. Oh, isn't it a pity that the likes of her married to the likes of him?
Yeah, should put upon the likes of him, I think, at the end, but good enough. Ian, we come to you for some advice to the lovelorn. What to do when a maiden takes your fancy. I'll give you an introduction.
You may think you've found a woman who'll be faithful all her life. You may smother her with kisses, nuptial joys and wedded blesses, sure that she's the perfect wife, sure that she's the perfect wife, perfect wife. Tra-la-lera, 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 tra-la-lera.
And that, I'm sorry to say, is the end of our season at the Wells. One performance which we at any rate will never forget. And the victory, I see from the score sheet here, a victory for John Amos and Frank Muir.
In conclusion, I'd just like to say on behalf of all of us, thank you, Mr. Sadler, for making it all possible. Goodbye.
Taking part in My Music were John Amos, Frank Muir, Ian Wallace, and Denis Norden. The chairman was Steve Race. The questions were compiled by Steve Race, and the program was produced by Tony Schreier.